Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. I'm Katie Mox. Last week, we talked all about the NFC and futures that you should bet right now. Today, we're going to get into the AFC. So let's get right into it with our stars of the show, the guys that make you all of the money on SportsLine.com. We got Mike McClure, data engineer for SportsLine, managing editor for SportsLine.com, R.J. White, and Alex Selznick, a.k.a. Propstarz, the guy who kills it in the prop market. Fellas, always lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us today. So let's get right into it. We're talking about the AFC, so let's start at the top here. Who is going to win the AFC Championship? The Chiefs, obviously the favorite here at plus 350. Then you got the Ravens at plus 500. Bengals and Bills tied at plus 750. And then you got the Texans and the Jets. So RJ, you told me you're a little bit more pessimistic when it comes to the Bills. So I'll start with you here. Any way you're going to gamble on the Bills in this market?
No, I never gamble on the Bills. I'm too pessimistic on them every year. But I like the Jets, actually, as the AFC Championship. I am worried about a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming back from an Achilles tear. It's a major injury, and a guy at that age, you just can't expect him to be the same player. But the rest of the roster is outstanding around him. And we looked at a team back in Super Bowl 50 like the Broncos with Peyton Manning. I mean, he was definitely a shell of his former self, and they still won the Super Bowl because the roster was so good around him. They finally have both quality and depth at tackle with Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, and Fashanu, the rookie. They have more weapons to help Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. And a better offense takes pressure off a defense that was put in terrible positions last year, does have the talent to be the best defense in the NFL. I just love this roster outside of quarterback. And if something happens to Aaron Rodgers and it's a veteran in Tyrod Taylor that's navigating the ship this year, I still think they have playoff potential and could make a run there because of how good the rest of the roster is. So Jets at 11-1 at their best odds that I found in the market still seems like a pretty good value to me.
Mike, what do you think?
I like the play on the Jets there from RJ, but I'm going to be on the Chiefs once again. I know people are getting sick of Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, but this team is dominant right now, and I think this is the best roster that Patrick Mahomes has had to work with in his time in Kansas City. So when you look top to bottom, they were able to retain a guy like Chris Jones who's going to be critical rushing passers in the playoffs. But we've also got new kickoff rules this year. They brought in the rugby superstar. They've got a guy like Justin Reed who can play on those kickoffs. I just think there are so many little areas of the game where Kansas City actually got better this offseason, and I think they should be the clear favorite in this market.
I'm with you on this one, Mike, and I hate to do it, but look, the Chiefs have hurt my feelings so many times in my lifetime, so I'm going to take them as well at plus 350. You could shop around for this line. It's at plus 300 in some places, plus 350. Look, no team has ever done a three-peat to win the Super Bowl, but it looks like the Chiefs have the best, opportunity to do that. Only 7 teams in NFL history have also won the Super Bowl, having been the preseason betting favorite. Now, of course, we're only talking about the AFC Championship game, but I think that they can actually three-peat this year. I know that's probably music to your ears over there, Mike. But all for the same reasons you just said. They have a very young core team here, and Patrick Mahomes arguably has the best weapons that he has had in quite some time. And this defense has been very formidable, certainly over the last couple years. So I'm with you on that one. Proppy, what do you think?
I like the Cincinnati Bengals, Katie. I just think this roster, top to bottom, is one of the most underrated rosters in the NFL, especially the AFC. I think Joe Burrow is prime for a career season. I think he's a viable MVP candidate. And I look around at the weapons that he has, the trio of wide receivers, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and the rookie Jermaine Burton, who I absolutely love, out of Alabama. I think this is the best trio of wide receivers in the NFL. I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals are going to score a ton of points. I like the defense as well. I think their experience, top to bottom, I think this roster is ready to make a serious push for the AFC Championship. I love the odds we're getting here at plus 750.
I love the Bengals. I love this pick. Do y'all see the picture of Joe Burrow today with his bleached blonde hair looking like Eminem from the early 2000s or Ken from the Barbie movie? However you want to say it. He looks healthy. He looks good. Joe really putting the cool in his nickname. All right, let's look at some long shots now. Longest shots to win the conference, the Patriots at 10-1. Then you got the Broncos, Titans, and the Raiders that round out the top 4. Mike, you going real long with this one, or who do you like as a long shot?
For me, it's going to be the Jets. RJ already mentioned them here. I think this is a great spot to back the Jets, and the price point does vary a lot based on where you're shopping. But you can find them plus 1,100. I think this is a great number when you look at this roster. They added a lot, whether it's on the offensive line, like RJ mentioned, some of the skill position players, a guy like Mike Williams going to be big. Even Braylon Allen at running back behind Breece Hall. That 1-2 punch is going to be one of the better ones in the NFL. And then we already know how good this defense has been. I'm excited to see how good this defense can be when they're not constantly put in terrible situation after terrible situation. And then finally, they have the second easiest schedule in the NFL this season. Love the Jets here in every market, but particularly in this one, plus 1,100.
Well, I certainly like the Jets as well. I went for more of a long shot here, 25-1. I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts, who I really feel are one of the more underrated teams in the NFL, certainly in their division. I think the Colts roster, top to bottom, is one of the best rosters in football. They've been drafting so well for years and years here. Defensively, I just love the talent they have at defensive end, just a lot of depth. I think they're going to be able to really effectively rush the passer. Offensively, a lot hinges on Anthony Richardson, but we saw how good this offense was without him last season. I think they're going to be able to run the ball very effectively with Jonathan Taylor, who looked like the Jonathan Taylor of old over the second half of the season last year. If they're able to get Anthony Richardson, if he's above average quarterback, I think this is a 10-plus win football team. So I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts, who I really feel are primed to make a lot of noise in their division. Love it at 25-1 odds.
I do like the Colts call. They're going to feature into the rest of my picks as we go on through this show. My long shot champion here is going to be the Browns at 22-1, a team nobody's really talking about despite how last season went. To me, they're sort of a poor man's Jets. They have fewer weapons. Their weapons aren't as good, but they have a much younger quarterback coming off a less serious injury that I'm less worried about. And he actually flashed a little bit last season. I know he hasn't played well since returning from suspension, and that the odds for the Browns on all sorts of picks got a little out of whack because of that. But I think he actually could be somewhat similar to what he was in the past. Cleveland also lost Conklin in week 1, the right tackle, Chubb in week 2, started 5 different quarterbacks, still went 11-5. There was some overperformance baked into there, but with Watson being better last year while playing through that injury than he was the year before, I think he has big potential in Ken Dorsey's offense. The defense played well aside from their points allowed metric, and a better offense, just like the Jets, will let them spend less time on the field. And we saw the Chiefs just win a Super Bowl last year with an offense that wasn't quite as good as it has been in the years past, and an elite defense. And this version of the Browns strike me as similar, even though we know Deshaun Watson is nothing like Patrick Mahomes. I think they can win with a good offense and an elite defense. So at 22-1 and win the NFC, the AFC, I think it's a great long shot pick here.
I'm with you on this one. RJ, I feel like there's too much value, especially when you think about last year. Everybody was so high on the Browns, and really they did still have a good season, even with Deshaun Watson taking some time to get up to speed and then also getting injured there late in the season. When you look at Cleveland in the offseason, they didn't really have any big splashes, right? They had the cap situation with getting Deshaun Watson, didn't really have a lot of draft picks, but they didn't lose a lot of players either. So if everyone was so high on them last year, I don't know why these odds have slipped all the way down to 22-1 or 17-1. RJ got better odds than me. So again, guys, shop around, try to get the best numbers here. So I think if they could get Deshaun Watson back to somewhat of the shape that he was in when he was with Houston, I think this would be really great. I think they're slightly mispriced here. All right, let's talk Super Bowl now. Who has the best value in the AFC to win the Super Bowl? Mike, I kind of think I know where you're going with this one.
Yeah, we're going back to the Kansas City Chiefs here, Katie. Look, I think this team, out of any of them in the NFL over the last 2 decades, probably in the best position to even think about the three-peat, and it's really just about this team getting better. As RJ mentioned, they didn't have their best offensive unit last year, but they finally got to an elite level defensively, and that's really helped them a ton. I think that the defense is right there again this year, but I think the offense has bounced back in a big way. When you look at the weapons that Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes is going to have with Travis Kelce being healthy here, I think this is going to be a great opportunity for them to get back. They've already shown that it doesn't matter if they're winning games on the road or not. As long as Patrick Mahomes is healthy, this team is going to be a front runner to contend for a Super Bowl. And I think their window has not quite closed yet. I think we've got another couple years of this, but definitely this year, Kansas City Chiefs.
It's hard to argue against Kansas City here, but I'm going to go with my pick for the AFC Championship, and that's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals here. 15-1 odds. As Mike mentioned, a lot hinges on Patrick Mahomes. The same thing's applicable to this Bengals team and Joe Burrow. If Joe Burrow stays healthy, he's proven to be a viable MVP candidate. I really believe he has the best talent at wide receiver, not just that he's had over the course of his career, but in the NFL. So I think this offense is going to be prolific with a healthy Joe Burrow. I have them projected to lead the NFL in passing attempts. I think that trickles down to them scoring the most points in the NFL. Granted that Joe Burrow does stay healthy, but he's participating in off-season workouts. He's going to play in the preseason, which he hasn't done previously. Jamar Chase is fully healthy. T. Higgins is going to be playing for a contract. I love the rookie they just drafted, Jermaine Burton, out of Alabama. I really believe he would have been a first-round pick had it not been for some off-the-field character concerns with him. So I just think this Bengals offense is going to be absolutely elite. They have a balanced roster. I think the defense is above average, but I really believe the offense will lead them to the Super Bowl, getting here 15-1 odds. I love the Bengals this season.
I certainly think the Chiefs should be the favorite here, and I'm not going to argue with anyone that wants to pick them, obviously, but I'm going to return to my pick of the Jets to win the AFC, to win the Super Bowl here at 22-1. I mentioned the Broncos winning Super Bowl 50 with Peyton Manning a shell of himself. I think that is on the table if Rodgers is at his worst. And what if he's good? What if he's just, solid? Then I think this team has championship caliber potential. The key is him playing in January, as I don't trust Nathaniel Hackett to run the offense in January if Rodgers is not on the field. He takes a lot of that responsibility on his own, and I'm not sure Tyrod Taylor is going to be trusted the same way. This defense can absolutely shut teams down in the playoffs and win 17-10, which is what the Chiefs did against a juggernaut Ravens team last year. The Jets, I think that is on the table for them too. The market has been backing them in the future so far this summer. So I think the value is to go ahead and get this now, because I don't think 22-1 is going to be available anywhere by the time we get to late August and people really start piling on this team, especially if Rodgers starts looking pretty healthy in camp.
Look, I'm not as high on the Jets as you guys are in this upcoming season. We'll get into that when we talk about division win totals. But I agree with you, and these odds are certainly going to shift if Rodgers gets in there and starts playing like we know that he is able to play. So good time to get in on that plus 2,200. I'm going to agree with Mike and go chalk here with the Chiefs. I don't know what it would have to be priced at for me to not see value in taking the Chiefs for this three-peat. Again, you just give them the tiniest little inch, the tiny margin of error on your side, and they will come in and beat you in the Super Bowl. We've seen it now 2 years in a row, and likely see it 3 years in a row. So plus 600. Let me ask you, Mike, what would the odds have to be for you not to think that there's value in taking the Chiefs here?
Probably plus 400, plus 450. A number that I think, frankly, that you'll see as long as they make the playoffs or on track to make the playoffs, which certainly should be able to run through their division again this year, in my opinion. So, yeah, around 400 plus 450. So not a ton left on it. Mostly priced appropriately here. And when you have a favorite like this, when they're just simply priced appropriately, I think it's a good time to buy them. Yeah,
especially they're tied with the Niners right now, or maybe just a little bit slightly above on the odds board. And the Niners, of course, maybe coming off of that Super Bowl losing slump, right, fellas? Sharp stuff here. And if you've liked what you've seen, then you might want to check us out on SportsLine.com. You could use the promo code MOXIE. There she is. Get 60% off with that promo code MOXIE. Scan the QR code on your screen, or you can head over to sportsline.com/join. When we come back, we are taking on the AFC Division Winners coming up. What can the Colts do? We got those answers coming up next. The Early Edge, CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to the Early Edge. If you're just tuning in with us now, we are talking all things AFC in the futures market. So let's dig right in, fellas, and talk division winners here. Who do you think could win their respective divisions? Proppy, we'll start with you. Oh,
I'm going to go with Indianapolis.
Sorry, I will say we each have two of these, so we'll go one round first and then the second round. So hit me, Prop.
Of course, Katie. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts in the AFC South. I absolutely love the price point here at plus 310. I frankly think the Colts have the best roster in the division. The Houston Texans are the current favorites. I think they're a serious regression candidate. But just looking at this Colts roster top to bottom, I really believe it's the most talented or most balanced roster in the division. They've just done such a good job drafting. And it's on the defensive side. They have so many viable pass rushers in their front seven, multiple guys capable of getting double-digit sacks. Offensively, one of the best offensive lines in football. We know at running back, they're absolutely loaded as well. So I just think this Colts team, top to bottom, are really primed to be very, very good. Anthony Richardson obviously had a pretty good season, or rookie season, didn't stay healthy for the duration of the season, but if he's able to stay healthy and they're able to get above average quarterback play with Jonathan Taylor at running back, this offensive line, I think they're going to be able to effectively run the ball as well as any team in the NFL, really play ball control offense. I think this Colts team is as good as any team in the division. Love the price point here.
And
Yeah, I'm with
the
Alex
AFC
here.
North.
Sorry, I had the Colts
ahead,
too,
Ed.
so I just wanted to follow that up real quick. And I was very excited to tell people that we just posted our Division Winners article for betting strategy at sportsline.com. I know Katie finished the last segment talking about sportsline.com, so I wanted to plug that. But also on the Colts plus 325, I think there's value backing an AFC South underdog, like Alex said. And that schedule looks tough for all AFC South teams. But non-common opponents for the Colts are the Denver Broncos, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Giants, as good as you can possibly get. So just wanted to point that out too, since I was in the same pick.
And I'm in the AFC North. I'm looking at the Baltimore Ravens plus 140. Look, this division is always competitive, always tough, right? And I think they're looking at two playoff teams here, one via the wild card, one via the division winner. But I like the Ravens to win this division. I have them close to a 50% here. This should be right at even money, plus 105. I think that the Bengals, while they are a team that can certainly challenge and make the playoffs, they're still likely looking at a wild card position. This Ravens team was absolutely dominant last season, and I don't think they got any worse. You could argue that they got better in a few spots. They just simply ran into a very tough Patrick Mahomes Kansas City Chiefs team in a game that was, frankly, a very competitive football game. Otherwise, this Ravens team has been one of the best in the NFL, and I think that continues. I also think this is a team that understands the importance of having home field advantage. I think they take the regular season a lot more seriously than some of the other teams like Kansas City will. So I like the Ravens here. I have this a lot closer to even money. I think it's a pretty strong value despite having good challengers in the division. Give me the Ravens plus 140.
I like that Ravens pick. I'm staying in the same division as you are. I do think that Lamar Jackson is being disrespected in the MVP market, but we'll get into that a little bit later on the show. But I like the Bengals here at plus 165. And sure, their schedule looks really hard, but we know that this Bengals team can beat really good teams, and a hard schedule doesn't mean too much to them. Even with Joe Burrow getting injured last year, I think they surprised a lot of people. They had more than him getting injured. They had everybody getting injured on that team, and they were still able to make it quite far in the season. You look at Joe Burrow, fresh bleach blonde hair. He's healthy, fully cleared for training camp. And if there's any quarterback that has proven to be able to beat Patrick Mahomes, it is Joe Burrow. So I like the Bengals to get out of their division this year and win that at plus 165. We're going to do one more round. Going back to you, Prop.
Yeah, Mike and RJ have been talking about the Jets throughout the course of this program. I love the Jets' chances of winning the division. I do think they should be the favorite in the AFC East. Taking a look at the Bills team, they've lost a lot of talent. I think the Dolphins are a paper tiger. I don't think the Patriots are anywhere close to being competitive. But this Jets team, they've really placed a heavy emphasis on adding a lot of quality veteran players to this already stacked roster. We know Aaron Rodgers. If we're able to just get, Aaron Rodgers, an average Aaron Rodgers, this is going to be a very good team. This team is loaded top to bottom with dynamic playmakers. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, one of the best running back wide receiver combos in the NFL. Love the additions to the offensive line as well, really beefing things up. Love what the Jets did in the draft too. So I think this Jets team should be the favorite in the AFC East. So I like them as a value pick.
Yeah, I already made my case for the Jets too, but that's my pick as well at plus 190. I do also see some downside in the top two teams in the division. Buffalo loses two key players at receiver, and Josh Allen, as great as he is, he's an MVP level quarterback at his best. He's also turnover prone, and I think there is danger in him trying to do too much in this offense when he doesn't have that reliable weapon of Stephon Diggs to lean on here. The Miami offensive line and defense could also be a problem depending on the health of the pass rushers. Market's starting to hit the Jets. It would not be surprised, like Alex said, to see them as co-favorites to win the division, or even past Buffalo by the time the season starts. So I think there's value in grabbing them now with the plus 190.
I am also on the Jets plus 190. I make them the clear favorite in this division. Preseason, off season like this, I go through and I simulate all the matchups, right? I thought I was going crazy when I had the Jets favored 14 times this season until I go to the market and look at the look-ahead lines. They're favored in exactly 14 games this season. Underdogs just 3 times, plus 5.5 on the road at San Francisco, plus 2 at Miami, plus 2.5 at the Bills. Only one time are they an underdog of more than 3 points this season. I love the roster top to bottom. I actually think they have a great receiving core when you consider all of the options that Rodgers or whoever will be playing quarterback will have. I've just been so impressed with this team defensively, despite being put in negative situations time and time again. I don't think that happens here this season. Love the way the schedule sets up. I'll take the Jets here plus 190 as I price them at plus 125.
Man, Zach Wilson is gone and everybody's high on the Jets again. Doesn't matter what happens with Aaron Rodgers. You don't have Wilson to worry about this year. I'm going to agree with, I believe it was RJ in that last round, and take the Colts here at plus 310 for my second division winner. I mean, we look at this offense. They've got a strong running game, right, with Jonathan Taylor, a solid, serviceable O-line. And I do think that they have pretty good depth at wide receiver. You got Michael Pittman. They just drafted a rookie, Adonai Mitchell, and then you got Josh Downs as well. They are well coached by Shane Steichen. I mean, look what he was able to do with this team last year, even without Anthony Richardson for most of the season. And before he went out, I do think that Richardson showed a lot of promise. Obviously, he's got to learn how to protect himself, which hopefully he has learned this year. But I really think that this Colts team is a great one to win the division at plus 310. All right, guys, really, really good stuff here with the division winners. We are going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we're talking AFC player futures. Patrick Mahomes, he's the favorite in everything right now. MVP, you got Richardson, we were just talking about him. Who will win their futures markets? We'll get back to that on CBS Sports Network. Early Edge next. Welcome back, everybody, to the Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. I'm Katie Mox, and we're joined with SportsLine's finest today, Mike McClure, Alex Selznick, and R.J. White, and we're talking all things AFC. And now we're going to get into the player prop market futures, of course. We're going to talk some season awards, but first let's get into stat leaders. Who from the AFC is going to be leading in the stats department? Can be passing yards, touchdowns, rushing yards, anything that your heart desires here, or your pocketbook rather desires here. I'm going to start with you, Mike. Big Chief fan. You're looking at Patrick Mahomes. He's favored in so many different things. Right here to lead the NFL in pass yards, plus 650. Why do you like it?
Katie, look, this is an award that he's almost always going to be in competition for just because of the style of play, right? He finished 6th last season, playing in 16 out of 17 games. The top 4 all played 17 games. The schedule is more difficult for them this year. I think they're going to find themselves in a ton of competitive games where him playing 17 is actually likely here for them, but they drastically improved that wide receiver room. When you go back to 2022 even, he finished first in this award by over 500 yards with 5,250 yards. That would have won last year by 625 yards. This is a spot where I think that he should be the rightful favorite here when you look at this roster up and down. I think that the Chiefs, they're a clear Super Bowl favorite for a reason. It's because they have, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the game, and the offense is clearly going to run through him. Think back to last season, just how many times they had drives end with dropped passes. I think that's a thing of the past here for this team, and I think he's the rightful favorite in this market, where the question is just going to come down to, does he get 16 or 17? Again, last year's or 2022 numbers, he would have won it with 16 games, didn't even need 17.
I like the pick, Mike, and it's hard to argue against Patrick Mahomes, who's obviously been absolutely fantastic, but Joe Burrow is not getting enough credit in this particular market, in my opinion. Love the value we're getting at 12-1 odds for Joe Burrow, who I really believe is primed for an MVP caliber season as long as he's able to stay healthy. But I absolutely love this Bengals offense. I think they're going to lead the NFL in passing attempts. I think they have a lot of things working in their favor. First and foremost, this trio of wide receivers, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and this rookie named Jermaine Burton, who's going to be absolutely fantastic, in my opinion, is a massive upgrade over Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd is more of a traditional slot receiver. He has vacated this offense, being replaced by Jermaine Burton. This is going to allow Jamar Chase to work all over the field. He is just a massive mismatch. The most double-teamed wide receiver since he stepped foot in the NFL. That would be Jamar Chase. Jermaine Burton is a massive mismatch on the outside, on the perimeter. His ability to win downfield is going to translate right out the gate. Don't be fooled by the 4th-round draft status either. He would have been a first-round pick had it not been for some off-the-field character concerns, which I don't feel are going to be at play in season 1. T. Higgins also looking for a new contract. He's going to be highly motivated. So I just look at this trio of wide receivers. I really think it's the best in the NFL. I think Joe Burrow has proven that when he's on the field, he's as good as any quarterback in the league. So I love Joe Burrow to potentially lead the NFL in passing yards at 12-1 odds.
Joe Burrow's decision-making on full display on that picture right there.
I love it. I love it. He looks cool.
So I like to go pretty longer shot on these, as we know. And my stat leader here is going to be Zamir White to lead the league in rushing yards at 30-1. I think he has the potential to lead the league in rush attempts with how Antonio Pierce wants to play with this offense, winning with ball control and with his defense. We look at last year, Vegas went 3-1 in their final 4 games, with White averaging nearly 100 yards rushing. That pace that he was on would have beat Christian McCaffrey by 200-plus yards last year for the title if he was able to maintain it over a full season. Now, he's unlikely to be that good over a full season, we know. The point is that his ceiling is high enough to win this award, making 30-1 a great value here. Vegas only brought in Alexander Mattison, who face-planted in Minnesota. They drafted a running back, but not until the 6th round. This is clearly Zamir's White job to lose after what he did at the end of last year, and I think he has a great potential to rush for 250 to 300 attempts and be on the board potentially to win the league a rushing title here.
I like those odds, RJ. Obviously at 3-1 for Zamir White. I'm in the same market as you for the most rushing yards. I'm looking at Derrick Henry here. He's at 12-1. And I know that King Henry is coming off of maybe not his best year, but the reality is he did what he could do, but the Titans couldn't move the chains. They're not going to have that problem, or he's not going to have that problem specifically in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson can get first downs. He can convert on 3rd and long very easily, which means Derrick Henry is going to be on the field a lot longer, has more opportunities. I think we may see some vintage numbers here from King Henry. I do think it's a live bet here at 12-1. We do know that Baltimore is going to run the ball, so I think there's some good odds for him there. Moving on here to top player award in the futures market. 3 of us have gone MVP on this one, so we're going to start with who has the longest odds here, the most value, and that's RJ. You like Anthony Richardson. Tell us why.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. I have the longest odds here. My biggest worry about him coming out was his adjustment to the NFL. And the injury bought him time to get comfortable with the playbook, learn the offense more. He had a year plus to digest everything. He should be confident running a high-ceiling Shane Steichen offense. Shane Steichen might be one of the better coaches in the league based on what he did with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, having a winning record last year with Minshew playing 13 games. We know what he did in Philadelphia, that team that was just amazing and hard to stop in 2022 with Jalen Hurts. I think the potential is there for him to have a similar year to Hurts, and Hurts, I think, would have won MVP if he did not get hurt late in that season. His weapons have improved. He's going to surprise people, I think, as a passer with what they install in this offense this year now that he should be comfortable in it. And he has high-profile matchups that if he beats teams like the Bills, the Dolphins, the Lions, the Packers, the Texans, if he performs well against those teams, some of them with questionable defenses, and he puts together these must-see games in these high-profile spots, he's going to get some buzz here. I think 40-1 is too high for him, and that's just going to keep dropping as we get closer to the season.
Katie, I want to apologize in advance for this take because I'm going with the best running back in football. And I'm not talking about Christian McCaffrey. I'm talking about Breece Hall, and I love his chances at 20-1 odds to win Offensive Player of the Year. 23-year-old Breece Hall coming off of a season where he had nearly 1,600 scrimmage yards, 9 touchdowns on a Jets offense that was really just dreadful, whether it be injuries, quarterback play, etc. Breece Hall being the focal point of this Jets offense. I think he's as dynamic, as talented as any player, skill position player in football. Just possesses the speed, the breakaway ability, all the advanced metrics are absolutely phenomenal. Then you add Aaron Rodgers to the mix, having above average quarterback play. Plus, they really went out there and added a lot of pieces to the offensive line. Pashano, the draft pick, Morgan Moses, Tyron Smith. So I absolutely love all the upgrades on the offensive line. At that receiver position as well, you have Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, and then Aaron Rodgers. So I think Breece Hall is going to have an absolutely monster season. I think they're going to protect Aaron Rodgers by leaning heavily on their stud running back, who has just been absolutely dynamic since he's entered the league. So I love Breece Hall. I think he's primed for a career year 3 at running back, still just 23 years old. I think he's going to potentially has 2,000-plus yard upside in that offense, and he's that talented. So I'll take him at 20-1 odds to win Offensive Player of the Year.
Music to my ears, Proppy. We're going to continue the Jets theme here. I'm going Aaron Rodgers to win Comeback Player of the Year. I think this is a 2-horse race. It's Joe Burrow and it's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, the Jets, they have a much easier path, in my opinion, to making the playoffs. And when you get down to it, he's 13 years older. He is 40 years old entering this season. I think that gives him a massive leg up when it comes to winning a Comeback Player of the Year award. I love what they've done on the offensive line. I love the skill position, though. Alex just mentioned Breece Hall, one of the best running backs in the game, particularly catching passes, really adding to the stat padding for Aaron Rodgers here. But that receiver room with Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, we haven't even talked about Xavier Gibson yet, who I think is going to emerge as one of the better number 2/3 receivers in the NFL. So while we're high on the Jets, to me, this is a 2-horse race, and the fact that Aaron Rodgers is 13 years older than Joe Burrow, I think gives him a massive, massive edge if these two are even remotely close in terms of what they can lead their teams to this season.
This is a Jets future bet positive that I could definitely get behind, Mike, and I agree with you. I think him being 13 years older and everything that he went through last year is like Captain America coming out with the flag and then getting injured. It's a shoe-in for him as long as he can perform just a little bit better than Joe Burrow or similarly, like you said. I'm looking at Lamar Jackson for MVP here. He is 15-1, and to me, fellas, it feels like he's just getting disrespected in the odds here. He's the reigning MVP from last year. He had a hell of a season, certainly with his accuracy and throwing. He threw for 24 touchdowns, rushed for another 5. Baltimore went 13-3 in his starts last year. They had the best regular season record. You're going to tell me there's not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 quarterbacks that have better odds than him, that C.J. Stroud has better odds than Lamar Jackson? We heard Coach Harbaugh talking the other day. They're used to this kind of disrespect, but I'm going to capitalize on it and bet Lamar Jackson at 15-1. The Ravens have 7 nationally televised games, 5 of those in primetime. They got the Christmas game, and then they also have a game on Saturday. And we know while Lamar Jackson struggles in the big games in the postseason, primetime Lamar Jackson is absolute money here. So give me Lamar Jackson at 15-1. That is my pick for the MVP. Always sharp stuff here, fellas. We are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we've got more AFC futures. Don't go anywhere because we're going to talk win totals next. You're the Texans. They surprised a lot of people last year. The Jets, not so much. And with the other direction, we will wager on how they will do this year on the early edge coming up next on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to the Early Edge. I'm Katie Mox here with R.J. White, Mike McClure, and Alex Selznick, the best of the best from SportsLine.com. We're talking all things AFC, and now we're going to get into win totals. And just at the commercial break, some of us were talking about conspiracy theories, how we feel about Bigfoot. What I think is Bigfoot, guys, is this Jets. Y'all love them so much this year. I am taking them under the 9.5 wins. I think this is a 9-8 record team. I just think there's too much pressure on New York. Every single one of their games, right, is on primetime. Nationally televised game, every single one this season. No, excuse me, 6 of their first 11 weeks are primetime games. Excuse me on that one. So they got to travel to London, as you see there in week 5, to face the Vikings. It just creates to me, fellas. A lot of short weeks for Gang Green up front. We don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to look like. Yes, there's no Zach Wilson. It should be a little bit better. The defense is amazing, but I don't know. Jury's still out for me. I'm predicting 9-8. So I'm going under on the Jets 9.5 wins. That's at plus 132. That is my first pick for a win total here. We're going to do 2 each, but we'll start with one. RJ, I'll kick it to you now.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite side of that. I didn't want to keep hammering them as an over team here, but it is my favorite overplay. I do want to mention another piece that we do have going up on sportsline.com at some point is this futures fantasy draft that Alex and I are a part of. And the Jets over is going to be my number 1 pick. I just came on the clock and I'm about to put that in. But I didn't want to harp on that here. So my first pick I'm going to talk about here is the Browns going over 8.5 at minus 135. I talked about them a little bit earlier. The market thinks this team is barely better than 500. I just don't get it. They were better last year amid all their injuries. Great coaching staff we've seen on both sides of the ball. There's the potential offense is better than expected if Watson can stay healthy and be the guy that he flashed when he had a little bit of elite play. Took down the Ravens in that while injured during that game before he sat out the rest of the year. Defense, one of the best in the NFL, allowed 13.9 points per game at home, and the team hosts their toughest non-division opponents, Kansas City, Dallas, and Miami. I think the potential is there to start 5-0. I think the potential is there to be 7-2 or 6-3 heading into the bye, and then after the bye they get New Orleans, Pittsburgh twice, and Denver right after the bye. So this team could clear this by the time we start December. I just think there's so much value in taking them to go over and fading the regression that people think is coming.
And I don't think we've talked about the Jets enough here. I love the Jets over. By far my biggest position this NFL season going in. Over 9.5 wins. Again, I have them favored in 14 games. The market has them favored in 14 games. Just a massive margin for error, needing just 10 wins. When you look up and down this schedule, I think that they could get 10 wins. Even if Aaron Rodgers were to go out week 4, week 5 with an injury, this team is going to be a 10-win football team no matter who is playing quarterback here. Just looking at the skill position players, the schedule sets up so friendly for them. Again, just an underdog 3 times this season, including week 1, plus 5.5 at San Francisco, the week where everyone is healthy going into that one. I think it's an interesting look. I know it's a drastic change from where we saw the Jets just a year ago, but that defense is elite with just average offensive play. I think this number should be 10.5 minus 150, and I would still be on the over at that point.
I like it quite a bit, Mike. As you know, I'm also high on the Jets, but I'm going to shift my attention back to the AFC North. I think this pairs nicely with RJ's look on the Browns. I'm going to fade the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going under 8.5 wins for this Pittsburgh team. First and foremost, I need to credit Mike Tomlin, who I believe should be a magician once his NFL career is up, because his ability to get the most out of these rosters has really just been off the charts, never having a losing season below 500 since taking over as the head coach in Pittsburgh, despite really having some subpar rosters. But if he's able to muster 9 wins out of this group, color me extremely impressed, but I just do not see it here, especially with the addition of Russell Wilson at quarterback. Offensively, the skill position just does not look very good at wide receiver to me. Losing Deontay Johnson, moving over to the Carolina Panthers. I did like the draft. They did beef up at the offensive line, but I think this roster is also very top heavy, specifically defensively, just not a lot of depth. If TJ Watt, who's had some durability concerns, it gets injured, I just do not see this defense being a top 15 defense. I think they rely way too heavily on him and Highsmith to generate pressure. I just think there's a lot of question marks all over the roster. I don't view Arthur Smith at offensive coordinator as an upgrade either. So I just think there's holes all over Pittsburgh. I don't think they're anywhere close to being as talented as the rest of the division, where you have 3 very good potential 10-win teams. So I love fading Pittsburgh, despite this being minus $1.50. I think it's a good value.
No love for Steel City there. We're going to do one more round. We got to go quickly on this one. I will say I like the Bills over their 10.5 is at plus 120. The Bills have won at least 11 games in 4 straight years. They've won at least 10 games for as long as Josh Allen has been a starting quarterback. They've got no international games this year. They don't play on any holidays, which should help them a little bit. And look, they've got a difficult sequence there, as you see, between 11 and 15. Chiefs bye, 49ers, Rams, Lions. But I actually think they get some edge over the 49ers there because the Niners have to cross over 2 different time zones before getting into Buffalo. So I know they've lost some people. I don't think they're going to fall apart without Stephon Diggs. Give me the Bills. You hear that, RJ? Give me the Bills over 10.5. What say you, RJ?
I'm going to take the Broncos under 5.5. I could not believe where this team was valued at by the market earlier in the summer, with over 5.5 being heavily favored. That value has dropped about 0.4 of a win on the consensus line as people have hammered the under, seeing what I saw. I still think there's value in playing the under at minus 105 here. Questionable coaching staff with mediocre weapons around a quarterback who was a reach in round 1 by a lot of people's accounts. It's a bad situation for him to roll into and have success, even if Sean Payton is the right guy to help him reach his ceiling eventually. Defense, I think, is in a similar situation, not much pass rush talent, and I don't know what they do well to give the offense a chance and put them in a position to have some success. I think there's also value in playing the Broncos to have the fewest wins in the league at plus 650 and be the last winless team based on their schedule at plus 1100.
And I'm looking at the Texans. I went under 9.5 wins. Love the price point here. Love this situation overall. You know, they did surprise people at times last season, but they had the league's second easiest schedule last year. That is definitely not the case this year. They start week 1 with an extremely tough game against the Indianapolis Colts, who I think are going to be extremely tough in this division. But just looking at the schedule overall, they play a number of opponents that are going to be tough. They play the Bills. They go on the road at Lambeau, on the road in primetime against the New York Jets, but they also have to play the Lions, Cowboys, Dolphins, Chiefs, and the Ravens, all out of division. Just about as tough as it can get in terms of a non-divisional schedule. And then in division, having those matchups with the Colts, I think this is a Texans team that'll be about where they should be, which is going to be a 9-win team, not 10+.
Right there with you, Mike. The Texans are also my choice. They're my favorite regression candidate. Everything broke well for them last season. Really played above expectations. Snuck up on basically every team. Not going to be the case this season, especially when we're looking at a 9.5 win total, heavily juiced to the over. I also think they lost a lot of key pieces, especially defensively. Numerous starters in that front 7. Adding Stephon Diggs to a wide receiver group that was already very good with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. I don't see that move putting them over the top. I honestly think it's a little bit of overkill and might end up being a net negative for them. So I just think this is a great spot to fade the Texans. Love the price point, as Mike mentioned.
Yeah, the Texans went last year having every single game at that 1 p.m. slot on Sundays. And then as we looked at that graphic that just popped up, they've got 6 national televised games, got some primetime games in there, shorter weeks. It's going to be a little bit different. Certainly have a big target on their back. Always sharp stuff, fellas. We are going to take a quick break here. We got one more coming up, and it's my favorite bet of them all. It's the Long-Shots. What should you sprinkle on? It's got to be at least 3-1 odds. We'll tell you what that is coming back here on the Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Early Edge. Before we get out of here, we got one more bet for you for the AFC, and those are the long shot bets. What is worth a sprinkle? 30-1 odds or greater. RJ, start with you.
I think Will Levis to lead the league in passing yards at 80-1. Look at what Jake Browning did with Brian Callahan in 7 late starts last year. It was a pace that came very close to leading the league over 17 games. Will Levis is much more talented. He has better weapons this year. He has running backs that are going to be utilized in the passing game a lot. He has a bad defense that's going to lead to a lot of throwing. I think the attempts are going to be very high. His completion percentage is going to be up, and he has a shot at this award at 80-1.
Mike, what do you think?
I'm going to be on Kansas City here to have a touchdown and a field goal in every regular season game. These ones are kind of gimmicky, but this is a team that I think can pull it off. Just last season, only 1 game without a touchdown, 1 game without a field goal. I don't foresee the situation where they have the total collapse like they did against the Broncos last season. Odds imply 3%. That's right where I have it in the computer as well. I think it's a fun one for a long shot here, plus 3,100.
Guys, I have to stay on brand. I've been talking about Jermaine Burton throughout the course of this show, so I'm going to go with him to lead all rookie wide receivers in receiving yards at 40-1 odds. I absolutely love Jermaine Burton. I think he should have been a first-round pick, drafted in the 4th round because of some character concerns. He's being mentored by TJ Houshmandzadeh. I think he adds an immediate perimeter threat to a Bengals passing offense that could potentially lead the league in passing attempts and passing yards. I absolutely love the impact that he's going to make from day one.
All right, mine's a super long shot here. Give me the Steelers to win the Super Bowl at 5-1. I mean, look how far they got last year with subpar quarterback play. You got to think that Fields and Russ are going to be better. Thanks for hanging with us today. Make sure you check out the Early Edge podcast. You could scan the QR code right there on your screen. This is the Early Edge on CBS Sports Network.